What is up, nerds? It's me, your buddy pal, HeyArcher. Welcome back to HeyArcher, episode 138 here on Nerd Affiliated. The man's in the house, Senor Sal. We got a lot to talk about. It's been quite a while, but as they say, time makes the heart fonder, except for some of these franchises, I think. In following previous formats, we're going to do nerd news, what we're watching, and some nerd reviews. Topics we're going to talk about today, for the most part, will be spoiler-free because none of it really has come out, with one exception, and that is She-Hulk, which we'll talk about at the end. As of today's recording, Daredevil has not appeared on the show, so we're kind of just talk about what we think may happen, what we think of the show so far. So at the very end, that's where you may have potential spoilers. The rest of it, spoiler-free. Sit back, relax, intro. All right, so once again, welcome to HeyArcher, the podcast here on Nerd Affiliated. I got Sal to the side of me. I assume he's on this side when I do the post editing. Sal, how you doing today? What's going on?
Doing all right. How are you?
You know, can't complain. I feel like every week there's not a lot to talk about, and then all of a sudden when we sit down and think about it, there's like a billion things to discuss, like out of nowhere.
That's exactly what happened today. I guess being candid, once we started going over the notes, it's like, ooh, we got a lot. We got a lot to discuss.
Exactly. So, as I mentioned at the intro, we have nerd news, what we're watching, and nerd reviews. If you've not done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, get notified. Today's episode and every episode is sponsored by Nerd Affiliated. Head over to the website, get yourself some cool merch, be part of the foundation. But starting with nerd news, D23 was the big thing the end of last week. I feel like it came out of nowhere. I feel like I didn't even know what was happening, and all of a sudden it's on Yahoo Finance, it's on Twitter, it's everywhere, and a billion trailers and news was revealed. So just to cover a couple things that we won't go too in depth on, but that were revealed: Indiana Jones, new season of Mandalorian, Bad Batch, Ahsoka, Willow, Skeleton Crew. Actually, out of that group, what are your thoughts? Is there something there that you're potentially looking forward to?
I'm looking to take a break from some superhero stuff and some sci-fi, and I'm looking forward to Willow. I think I could use a little more high fantasy in my life.
We'll talk about some fantasy later on, I'm sure. But I'm down for that. I'm down for something different. It wasn't even at the top of my list for wanting to watch. I did enjoy the trailer, so since you mentioned it, I think that's going to move up a little bit further. Of course, Mandalorian, you know, we're all going to watch it. It's kind of like in a list of its own. Like it's one that we're all like, it's like mandatory viewing it.
Yeah, there's no way I'm missing that. There's like, I can miss Bad Batch. There's no way I'm missing Mandalorian.
And until Bad Batch gets a little darker, which is a cliche thing to say, I've kind of lost investment outside of the figures. Loving the figures still, but you know, different conversation. Yeah. Something that was brought up just to end the Star Wars section: Tales of the Jedi. I did not know of that, but it seems like it's different time periods within the prequel time period. What were your thoughts on seeing those reveals there?
Didn't it feel like, remember when they revealed Visions? I kind of felt like Visions came out of nowhere. It's like, oh, hey, here's an anthology series that no one asked for. And we all loved it. I'm hoping they're capitalizing on the same energy, where it's more like, hey, we know you guys want this, and we didn't leak it or anything. We kept it completely on the wraps. But here's a bunch of different stories that we can tell without interrupting anything, without getting in our own way. And I'm really looking forward to it. I like the idea of it.
I think the headline one that everybody's gonna look forward to is the Count Dooku prequel type thing. You know, him with Mace Windu, Yodel being in it. Is that something that you would rather see, like as a live action? You're cool with it being animated? Where would you like to see this? Because I'm sure it's gonna, like, whether it sucks or not, I'm sure they're gonna push Dooku stuff. So, assuming they push Dooku stuff after this, which format do you want to see it in?
I'm fine with the animated stuff. It gets to, I know like Liam Neeson is still alive, and Liam Neeson is much older than what he was 20 years ago. Christopher Lee's gone. I don't know if I would want to see that like recast. I think I'm okay with the animated stuff. I feel like they could do more too.
Minority though, like I feel like the hardcore Star Wars fan fine with animated, but a lot of the casual viewer I feel like struggles with the Clone Wars style animation stuff. So I'm curious who they're going to try to target when it comes to that. You know, I one of the things I've talked about in the past is the casual fan is usually who is prioritized, but being that, you know, there's money to be made in Clone Wars and continuing to, I don't want to say beat the dead horse, but continuing to go to that well, even though the well's almost dried at this point. I think there's a greater value in appealing to us versus the casual.
Yeah, I agree too. That was kind of, to go back to Visions, that was kind of like the thing with Visions too. A lot of the guys that I know that are into Star Wars, you know, they're casually into Star Wars. And I brought up Visions, and they're like, oh, you know, it's, one, they didn't know about it, or it's like, oh, it's kind of like anime, like not just animated, but it's also an anime homage. And I'm like, yeah, it is like a love letter to the East for Star Wars, because the Jedis come from the idea of like samurais and like monks and stuff like that, like warrior monks. But you got to get past that, and it's essentially, even the Kurosawa episode, which is my favorite, that first one, it's essentially Star Wars. You know, you're denying yourself some great Star Wars material just because you say, this is not what I usually watch.
Yeah. So I forget who it was. It was what's the dude that was going to play Deathstroke? That's married to Sofia Vergara. John something.
Mangiello.
There you go. Right, I never remember how to say his name. Somebody was asking him like if he prefers fantasy over sci-fi, and then Star Wars came up, and he was like, Star Wars, I think you maybe sent it to us, or it was in our group chat, but it was like, Star Wars is high fantasy. It's just set in space. And I was like, I never really thought of that until he mentioned it.
Yeah, it's more, it's always the argument between what's better, Star Trek or Star Wars. And they're not the same. Star Trek is science fiction. Star Wars is fantasy. You know, it's not, yeah, it takes place in space, but it's not the same. I actually, I've been meaning to post a picture. I did a comic haul the other day. Shout out to Haven of Heroes in Port Jervis, New York. Great collector shop. I don't know if anybody's in the area, but check them out. They got a bunch of old, like, you could buy old Nintendo games. Nintendo's intact, PlayStations. They have loose single issue comics. They buy and sell. So if you're ever around the area, check them out. But I did a comic haul from there. And I started reading Saga from Philip K. Vaughan. And I never finished it. I picked up the first 2 trades. And when I was out there, I picked up trade 3 and 4. And it's essentially like the best Star Wars comic that's not Star Wars. And that also falls in that where, like, what is it? It's not, yeah, it takes place in space, but is it high fantasy or is it like science fiction? And it pushes them together the same way Star Wars does.
Yeah, it's even the simplicity of him, like, oh yeah, like the young boy has to get the sword and fight the Black Knight. Like even in his basic thing. Yeah. High fantasy.
Love it.
So moving on to Marvel, I think the 2 biggest stories had no trailers at all. It was more just reveals. And one of them, the reveal was just a logo, and we'll talk about that. But before we get to that, Thunderbolts, shout out to Aaron Waller over at Nerdgenic, link down below. He made a video talking about the reveal of the Thunderbolts cast. And he was like, essentially, it's like the biggest not exciting news of the weekend, because here it is. We see that Marvel wants to continue with the group Avengers type storylines, which we knew a Thunderbolts series was coming out. But in these reveals, it was almost like nothing was exciting about it. In fact, I don't even know why some of these characters are there outside of Marvel's trying to do their own Suicide Squad. To the extent that Aaron even said, Winter Soldier being a part of the Thunderbolts, he's probably going to be the Rick Flag character of the group. So when you saw that reveal for all of these characters to be in the Thunderbolts, what were your thoughts, if you even cared about it?
I cared until I saw the picture of the ensemble, and then I wasn't too happy about it. They're missing some guys. They're missing, what's his name? He was Swordman in Hawkeye, the stepdad. He wasn't there. What was the other guy that wasn't there? Oh, I mean, obviously he's rest in peace. He's dead. But like Thunderbolt Ross, that's usually a big point with the Thunderbolts. Zemo led the team. So there's a couple different things that I would have liked to have. There's a couple different directions I would have liked them to take it, but it is just a teaser photo.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Thunderbolts works without them being opposed or across the table from the Avengers in any way? Like, do you think that hurts it?
Man, I don't know, because in the comics they're kind of like they're villains. It's kind of like Zemo trying to turn it around, and he's trying to get them to do the right thing. It's a different, like, I don't know. It's I never took it as the same way that the Suicide Squad was to the Justice League. I kind of took it as like their own thing.
Yeah. But here's the thing too, like there's a word you used, and it's something that I've been thinking about this whole time. Villains. Like, when I look at this roster that they've put together, there are no villains on this roster. Everybody has turned good, and Marvel made, that decision. Either villains die or villains turn to good guys. So I'm like, in them being anti-heroes, like, is it even going to have that feel? Like, that's my concern. Like, they're all so good, and they all blatantly had a reason for doing bad things. Like, I don't think they even need a moral compass at this point. Like, I think you might as well just, come up with a different name outside of Thunderbolts for them.
It's already established in the comics, right? Zemo is like second to Red Skull, right? And that you got Songbirds on there and Swordman, and usually behind Zemo, it's never anyone as tough. Like, Zemo's usually the baddest, and he's the one leading the team. So that's usually where it's like he's the one trying to keep everybody in line, and it showed like that's the conflict, which is weird seeing Zemo in front. Now they're all sort of like turned already, or misunderstood.
Yeah, and I actually I forgot we had it on the list, but Secret Invasion, that. To me, that's they could maybe be used in that series, right? Like, here it is. It turns out what I assume is happening. The Skrulls actually were bad this whole time, and then maybe the Thunderbolts go against the Skrulls, and maybe some of them turn. Maybe that's an angle that they play, because outside of that, I'm like, there's no reason for any of these people to be bad, because it turns out that they were mostly misunderstood, apparently, according to the writing of everything.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Aaron or if it was something else I watched, but someone was saying if you look at everybody, they're all failed science experiments, and that was something they were pushing. I I don't know if that is their angle, but I do like that they're all kind of like freak shows, like they're all failed science experiments. Yeah, all right. That Dave Harbour, man, that beard is gorgeous. But what? Okay, so you can't do, because the way the Marvel universe is right now, you can't do the analog to the Justice League, because like the way Suicide Squad is, right? Suicide Squad is, hey, this is dirty work. We can't have, Big Blue and the Flash show up and do this. No one's going to care if you guys do it. That's their angle. But the Avengers are essentially torn apart, non-existent. Everyone's doing like freelance work, the best way to put it. Or they're dead or out of commission. So what do? They throw these guys together like, hey, we need something. But there's 3 Captain Americas on that team. So, what do they could have, power set wise, they could have mixed it up.
I think maybe a trailer would have changed the vibe. Like maybe if the trailer came out and, I will say this to all of you watching and listening. We are all on the nerd affiliated team marks for Winter Soldier and the ground level superhero stuff. So, I think if a trailer came out and this was in that vein of, foot to face without all the explosions and going into space and stuff, maybe we'd have a different feel. And maybe the trailer will drop and we're like, oh, this is a cooler feel. I felt that way with the Secret Invasion trailer. I was like, oh, this seems in the very same vein of Winter Soldier.
Man, I hope they don't screw that up. I know we'll talk more about the trailer later, but it looks good. It looks dark. I hope they keep that on track. I hope whatever we're seeing is still in line with what we're getting.
So, you just watched the Secret Invasion trailer before we aired. Are you excited for that? Like, is that something that you had completely forgot about, or what are your overall thoughts?
Man, I'm so worried about Marvel's gonna Marvel. What I saw, I liked. I liked it a lot. It needs to keep that tone. It needs to stay serious. This is actually, the IP they can do it with. This is some deep stuff. It's, espionage, spy stuff. It should be the content. I'm not saying like to be like mature, like rated R type stuff, but it really should be at least, older teen rated stuff. They should still keep that vision. If they make it silly, they're going to ruin it.
I actually watched an interview this week with, I'm forgetting their names now, but they were the two writers and showrunners for X-Men the Animated Series. I'm gonna take a shot in the dark. I'm gonna slide in their DMs and see if they want to come on one of our shows. But
Cool.
I love
that.
In that podcast that they were on, they mentioned that when it was presented to them to do X-Men, whatever, if it was a studio or Fox or whoever, they were like, don't aim this to be dumbed down for kids. Just focus on making it a good story. And they also were able to then follow with the rules of kids TV. So there's certain lines they didn't cross. But I feel like they need to go back to that kind of thing, right? Like, it's an old man thing to say like, oh, then things aren't the way they used to be. But I mean, Civil War, you can still show that to a kid that's north of like 8, and they understand that's, I'm not going to go in the street and actually just start shooting somebody. Like they can tell the difference. So I feel like they need to kind of go back to that and understand like kids can watch a more mature show, just focus on the story, and the kids will stay until they're grown, and then their kids are watching the show.
It's kind of like you want them to find the line and walk it. Where we're not telling you to go overboard. We're not telling you to make this for adults, but you should also keep the tone a little more serious, because give kids a little more credit than they deserve. Good storytelling should come first.
So that's gonna roll us into Daredevil, and Daredevil was a big story of the week, not necessarily because of the reveal that we're getting Daredevil or even the logo that was shown to us, but in the logo they did mention it's called Born Again, and what made news was the fact that Charlie Cox was interviewed about the show, and he said in fact that it is not season 4 of Daredevil. This is actually treating it as season 1 of the Marvel Disney Daredevil. How afraid are you? I'm not even going to ask if you're afraid. I'm just asking how afraid are you? Because I think all of us are afraid.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've said it like on the last 3 shows I was on. We didn't deserve season 1 of Daredevil. That is just entirely too good for its own business. And we were like, as comic fans, as Daredevil fans, we were blown away. Now they have the IP, and with everything they've been putting out recently, I don't think we're gonna get what we had. The quality's not gonna hold up to what we had with the Netflix show. I'm just hoping they don't do a full origin, maybe more like a year 1 Daredevil, and well, I guess like a year 2 because the Netflix show was year 1. No.
And he's got he's got a yellow suit, and he's already in Spider-Man. He was really comfortable. It seemed catching that brick and all that stuff.
What would you think if, let's say, they did it as like not season 4, but like 1.5, kind of like where it's like a shoot off of the Netflix show. I'm hoping that's what it is.
A Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Oh, yeah, where it's 2 different tellings of the same story, and hopefully all the broad strokes are there, but, one's more accurate.
That could work. I also was thinking about it. Would we all feel more comfortable if it wasn't Charlie Cox? Like the fact that it's still him, it's like, all right, are we expecting too much now because we already love the original one? Or would we still expect a lot and be mad if it wasn't him? Like it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't when it comes to that. Because again, so good of a show, and even having the person play the same character, I'm like, would it have been better or worse? But I guess that's to be determined, since as of the recording tomorrow.
I think I don't think he should have been in Spider-Man. I think if they were going to do that, they should have changed it from the beginning. You could present Daredevil with the red sunglasses and the cane, and as long as you have him acting similar, you could have put a different actor in there. And I love Charlie Cox, but I would have been okay with that change. I would have been okay with them changing him. What about you?
I would be down for them changing him. I would have loved it if all of a sudden he was Styx. You had a younger Daredevil, so that way they can start a new thing. And then all of a sudden, he still plays a blind man, but now he Styx as opposed to Daredevil.
And it'd be a great homage to the Netflix series. And you could do it that way. I'm okay with that. I'm very much okay with that.
Many podcasts ago, when they revealed that Blade was coming out, and we were all like, Wesley Snipes is Whistler. Like, that's the move. Like, if you're going to do it, that's the move. But dude that's playing Blade is probably older than Wesley Snipes anyway. So it's like, I'm telling you, that's not coming out. I said it the day they announced it. I'm like, that show with that actor is not going to happen.
I thought I saw something yesterday. I don't remember if it was comic books or not, or Giant Freaking Robot. It was one of them. They said they started principal shooting. I don't know, but it's still pushed back. It's still pushed to like 2025.
That's wild. He's going to be like 90 by the time that comes out.
He was in Luke Cage. Wasn't he Copperhead in Luke Cage? He's not a young man.
Not at all. Not at all. But we're going to talk more about She-Hulk when we get to the review section and how Daredevil probably loops in there. But why don't we jump over into what we're currently watching? I'll kick us off on this one because I've the girlfriend and I have been watching every single day, and we're coming to the end. Mayans, spin-off show from Sons of Anarchy. Loving it, loving it, loving it. If you've not watched it and you love Sons of Anarchy, you should watch it. But also, if you've never watched Sons of Anarchy, I'd say watch the first season if you're interested, but stop there because things do happen over time that will spoil parts of Sons. But highly recommend Mayans. And really, the only other show I'm watching is She-Hulk. That's about it.
Yeah. I've never gotten into Sons of Anarchy. I tried to watch the first season, and I guess, I don't know, something didn't do it for me, and I never went back. Probably a big disservice to myself. I should probably get back in there and give it another shot. But, okay. All right. Yeah, I'm a lot like you. I've been surprisingly keeping up with She-Hulk every week. And I'm watching it on like Thursday or Friday. It's not like I'm waiting till, oh, it's Wednesday. I should probably get on this and watch last week's. Yeah, I've been watching it. I've been watching She-Hulk just about every week on time. Yeah. It's got its faults. It's definitely not perfect, but it's entertaining enough for me to get through it every week, and it's short enough that I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. Another big thing I'm watching is I'm caught up on House of Dragons. Game of Thrones House of Dragons. I love it. It's really, I think it's pretty solid. Yeah.
Mention with Mayans, if you haven't watched Sons, you can get away with watching the first season, but you should stop there. House of Dragon. If somebody has not watched Game of Thrones, but knows what happened, right? Can they watch House of Dragons? AKA, can I watch House of Dragons? Because I'm not.
So House of Dragons takes place like 170 to 180 years before the original series Game of Thrones. And so you're going to have, if you're familiar with the first series, yeah, you're going to hear a lot of names, right? You know, you're going to hear Bravos. You're going to hear about the Baratheons. You're going to hear about the Lannisters. You know, you hear about Castle Rock and King's Landing and the Red Keep and Dragonstone. So if you've seen the original series, it's a little bit easier to track because you know, or you have an idea of who every family is and where they come from. But coming in new, yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. It's so far ahead from everything, and whatever ancestry lines they talk about, they make it pretty clear. One of the big things with Game of Thrones, and whenever I try to get somebody new into it, this is the angle I always take. They look at it and they think Lord of the Rings, and they think like Dungeons and Dragons, right? And it's less Lord of the Rings, and it's more House of Cards. So if you're more into like the political aspect and cutthroat politics, yeah, there's some dragons, and yeah, there's some very light magic, very, very light, but it's more House of Cards than anything. So I highly recommend it.
Well, another show, I'm not sure if you're going to highly recommend it, but we're going to roll into nerd reviews. She-Hulk. Right now, we are 4 episodes in to She-Hulk. Yeah. Right? 4. Tomorrow's 5, I think. Mm-hmm. We haven't talked since episode 1, I want to say. I could be wrong, but I think it was episode 1. I'm in spoilers. Well, I'll say spoilers now. Again, the Daredevil episode has not come out yet. Us even saying Daredevil is in episode 5 is not a spoiler because Disney put it in the trailer that Daredevil was going to be in the next episode, which I was like, Disney going to.
And I know you hate this. They put out another trailer this week, which was like the Daredevil trailer. So not only did they tease him in the first one, he got his own dedicated trailer.
I'm like, you know what? I'm trying my best to not have whatever he's going to do get spoiled for me. But, you know, She-Hulk so far, people are very, again, divisive on it. People are like, oh, if you hate it, you're a misogynist. it's great. People are like, it's terrible. I feel like you and I are in the camp that, oddly enough, the most disliked episode is the one that we liked the most, which was last week. Is that?
Last week was solid. Still a 6 out of 10. Like I'm not blown away by any of this. But I'm entertained enough to come back every week.
Yeah. I feel like
And
I'm
actually,
more
that's-
entertained by everybody else, not her.
I think that's the direction they should have went. Hear me out. They should have done it where every episode, yeah, it's her show, but every episode should have been a different B or C level hero or villain coming to her like, hey, I need representation. And then it's whatever crazy antics happens in between. Like, like I don't want to, we're doing spoilers?
For the first 4 episodes, yeah.
Yeah. So like Wong showing up and Wong pulls her through a portal like, hey, I need help. That's great. That should have been the shit we've been getting since week 1. It should be a different hero on every episode. It should be a different villain. Keep it like C and D class maybe. And I think that would have been the better approach. I think that would have been like really entertaining. And it's her not being a superhero, not ever being associated with stuff before last week. And she's the fish out of water. We're stumbling through it with her. I think I would have liked that a lot better.
And I mean, we even pointed out, the internet pointed out, the title is a straight rip from Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. So it's like, just copy that format. Every week, different villain. And I think it took them too long to get to that. Like, the first episode, I thought, we all were like, this is just, stop. But whatever. Second episode, it's her, like, trying to figure out what it is to be a hero. But then, yeah, episode 3 and 4, every week, different case, different character, some random whoever, and that tends to be the most entertaining. And I still, to this day, think we would be okay with the humor of the show more if we weren't coming off Thor and the joke fest that was supposed to be. But
yeah,
I agree. Even Daredevil coming in now, I'm like, oh, that'd be great if he was doing some other case. And like, that's who she has to go against or something.
Yeah, that would have been, I would have loved that. I think that would have been pretty cool. I got an interesting hot take about She-Hulk. I don't think it's as woke as everyone thinks it is. Maybe I'm reading a little too deep into it, but I think they're poking fun at everybody. I think everything's kind of tongue in cheek and misguiding people to thinking this is this woke fest, this anti-man woke fest. I think a lot of people are missing the point.
So you think that they are doing that on purpose to
Yes.
make fun of?
I think it's a misdirection. Even I'll go back to the first episode. You got the scene with Banner with the boulder, right? He gives it a little toss. She throws it further, and he sends that thing, but like exit velocity into space. And what did she do? If she would have picked up another rock, I would have been pissed. But she kind of like, shrugs her shoulders and like makes a face. Then there's the scene where she's going on about how hard she has it with, just living everyday life and controlling her anger. And Banner's like looking through her. Like, oh, man, I heard someone else say this and I want to give them credit. I can't remember who it was. So please, if you're watching, please forgive me. Banner had his father-in-law chase him down. They created a super soldier to try to kill him. The entire force of the United States Army came after him. He fought aliens in New York City. He killed a bunch of people in Africa. He fought a genocidal robot. The Snap coming back and having the second fight with Thanos. And in the comics, his dad beat his mom to death in front of him. So you take all that and you look at the way Banner looks at her. It's almost like he's looking through her like, yeah, you've been through a lot. That's my hot take.
So it was a TikTok that you sent me where the guy went through the list, and it was him pretending to be She-Hulk talking to Banner. And then Anthony was saying it, I think, on a live show or a podcast, I can't remember, about the Hulk is the inner turmoil from watching things as a kid, like, you know, his stepfather beating his mom and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
I think I see your point. I don't think it's as hot as a take as you think it may be, only because there's that one episode where they're interviewing different people about She-Hulk, like showing the media, craziness around her, and the one person, if I remember, even like made a joke along the lines of, "Oh, let me guess, she's gonna be like a She-Hulk or something." They made some sort of joke about people complaining about things being woke. So I think they may be onto that, and that's where even since that first episode, there hasn't really been too many cringy moments, in relation to that.
There was also another part I picked up to piggyback on what you're saying. When the date, she brings the guy home. I can't remember his name, but she brings the guy home, the last one, and she comes back. He's reading a book, and the book is not. It says something about feminism on the cover, and I remember looking it up, and it's not really pro-feminism as much as it's a discussion about it. And I'm like, I that was what really tipped me off and made me go back and look at everything else from the weeks prior. And I'm like, I think I'm onto something. I think I think the masses are being misled, and it's being waved in their face, and they have no idea.
I guess there's one question though I was thinking about in watching the show, and I don't think I've talked to you guys about it, but is it bad that now we almost have to watch everything to get the movies? Like, I feel like they're almost forcing that hand. Do you like the current format of things, or do you like the old format of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. happens around the movies, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is enhanced for like one episode coming off of a movie, but nothing in the show directly affects the movie. Like, do you have a preference of the two, or?
Man, I think we lost that fight a long time ago. If you went to theaters and you saw Thor 2011, you lost that battle. That was the piece. That was the movie they forced out. They cut it to shit. It's got to be in before, what was it, April 2012, and it's got to be in before Avengers. And once they realized they were able to sell enough tickets with a broken movie, and I love Thor, huge Thor comic fan. Once they were able to sell you a broken movie and tell you have to see this or you're going to miss out on Avengers, we were all on board once we bought tickets. I think we're kind of strapped in. It's exhausting, but I don't know, kind of love it.
They were talking today on Yahoo Finance, which is like the only finance show I watch, but they were talking about how even at the Emmys this week, right? I think it was the Emmys. There was
Who cares?
winners were streaming except for like one show that's also on TV, and that's the moneymaker these days. And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, the subscription model. Let's take these movies or these characters that would have been in a movie, translate it into a TV show and get them hooked, month over month." And in a way, I'm kind of like, it's what we wanted to an extent. We wanted more stuff. We wanted things to be more fleshed out, but I feel like they're just not capitalizing on it in the right way.
Oh no.
But I feel like they should be almost selective. Like, have the shows goes like a She-Hulk. Like, She-Hulk goes on. Maybe she's in the next Avengers movie, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, what's her backstory?" "Oh, if you want, go watch the TV show." I feel like that should be more of it versus the movie maybe starts off and they're trying to find something, and you're like, "Wait, where'd that come from?" "Oh, you have to go watch the TV show."
Yeah. What was your opinion on what Disney did last year? I personally think it's like disgusting about how they baited us into watching all this stuff, because we had a new TV series every 2 months. It was like I think it was like every like 6 to 8 weeks. You know, it was WandaVision, then it was Loki, then it was Hawkeye, then it was What If, and that's crap. I want to say that's in between March and January. You know, like so, in like yeah, in between 8 to 9 months, you hit us with 4 shows. 4 shows, all of them 6 to 8 episodes. That's a little. That's a lot. It's exhausting. You know, it's a little Marvel burnout.
They didn't, and I never thought I would say this. They didn't do the show dump. Like it was you can watch week after week. So that I feel like that gave you some time. But I think the problem is that everybody's doing that. So that's where it even gets more exhausting. Because like right now, like, you know, you're watching House of Dragon, Rings of Power, or are you going to start it? I can't remember what you said.
I'm up to episode 3 of Rings of Power.
Okay. So like, you know, you have those shows and then She-Hulk, like to your point earlier with She-Hulk, like, you know, you're watching it on time. It's not a massive load at the moment. But yeah, when those shows were coming out, everybody was like, oh shoot, we got to start doing streaming stuff. And it was like 5 million shows at one time. They're overlapping. It's too much stuff. So I don't have an issue as long as they can take their time and again, work on the story. But yeah. I don't think I want a lot of it to affect the movies. But I think we don't have a choice at this point because they don't even know what the story is. Like, what are we working towards in this phase? Like, this phase is a complete wasted phase. And
no, it's a mess. Yeah. But to go back, to go back to your point, talking about the streaming shows and everything doing a dump. I remember, I know you didn't really watch it. Anthony got into it after it already aired, but The Mandalorian and the first season of The Witcher came out around the same time. I think one was October and one was November, if I remember correct. I know it was cold out, and The Mandalorian was coming out one episode every week. And granted, it's just chef's kiss. It's fucking perfect. But The Mandalorian, I cared about, and I made sure I made time for that show every week, and there was nobody was getting in my way. But The Witcher, which I love the games, I'm very familiar with the second and third game. I kind of took my time. I kind of banged out an episode here. Maybe I'd go 2 weeks without watching one. Maybe I'd go another week without watching the next one, and I'd eventually catch up and watch all of it, but not the same way that I was like starving for Mandalorian, foaming at the mouth for more Mandalorian, and I got it every week, and I cared more about that show than the data dump with The Witcher. So I don't know, this maybe that works. Maybe we've had streaming for so long that we want to go back to, you know, I don't want to say syndication, but go back to having everything come out, you know, 1 week at a time, and it's water cooler talk.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see last week's episode?
Yeah. And it gives you time to digest it. You know, like you can, yeah. And everybody's on the same page. You're not afraid. Like, oh shoot, I can't go to work tomorrow because, you know, Sal, who watches everything, probably saw the whole thing and he might spoil it for me. Like, you have time to work your way little by little through it.
What's the 3 biggest shows that, well, not 3 of the biggest because Sandman's on there too, but 3 of the biggest shows going on right now, which is She-Hulk, Rings of Power, and House of Dragons. It's an episode a week, all 3 of them. With the exception of House of Dragons not exclusively being on a streaming service, they all come out every week. Sandman, yeah, so perfect example, Sandman. They dumped Sandman. They put everything out at once, and they gave like a second season mini movie. I took my time and I worked my way through Sandman, and She-Hulk, I'm there every Wednesday. Every Thursday, I guess. Every Thursday morning. And Sandman is far superior to She-Hulk. But I make sure I have time for She-Hulk.
Does that mean we secretly all like She-Hulk and we just don't realize it? Is that what's happening, you think?
Well, I never said I disliked it. I just said it wasn't as like I kind of like sat in the middle. Yeah, like 6 out of 10. Like five would be like emotionless. 5 would be like meh. So I'm just over that. I'm entertained. I'm not mad at it.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? That's a classic movie. Love that movie. So quotable.
I remember being in the text with you guys watching She-Hulk, and it starts off, and I'm like, God, this show's terrible. And then I caught myself like laughing at points, and I was like, oh wait, I like this. I like what's happening currently. And I was like, oh right, I'm liking the parts she's not involved in. But I also, it was funny. I watched part of it. I think I had to go to work or something, and then decided to finish it at night before going to sleep. And my girlfriend sat down, and she sat down when she was on the dates, and finally was talking to the one guy she took home. And they're talking, and I'm like, oh, he's putting on a work. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you'll see. And sure enough, he was just, lying. And I was like, yeah. I was like, that's what guys do. Like, if we're really not into you, we're only in it for one thing. Like, oh, wow, tell me how you feel. Wow, tell me more about that. Like, all these, like, these one-line, open-ended questions. Yeah. And that they establish that that's a thing.
Yeah, no, look, it feels more natural. We've all been there on both sides. So it's not, I approve.
I was like, oh, I like this show. And then it got back to it, and I was like, oh, show's over. Yeah. I'm going to go to sleep now. Nothing to talk about.
Yeah. It's almost like you turn on your television on you got one of those smart TVs on the bottom. It has all your streaming services lined up, and it says, oh, hey, next on Disney is She-Hulk. Oh, shit, that came out yesterday. Okay. I'll burn a half hour while I'm making breakfast. And that's a save, too. It's like, what? Episode 1 was 36 minutes. I don't think they've had an episode over 45 minutes with the credits. Hey, I'll put down an hour and a half. If every episode was an hour and a half of Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'll put that down back to back. I'll marathon. She-Hulk, yeah, half hour. Yeah.
We didn't cover it, but I am every day more and more excited for Andor. Really excited.
Oh yeah. I hope they don't screw it up. I hope they keep a serious tone, and I'm not saying that because we're old men and we want everything to be for us. Shaking our fist at it. Get those damn kids off our lawn. But it's the content, and the content should be more serious. It's just the nature of what they're making.
It's literally the world they created. Like, they created that darker tone character, darker tone rebellion. Just give us what you already did.
Yeah.
Cool. Any last minute things before we call it an episode?
No, check out the merch store. We do all our own stunts. We support ourselves. If you could go down there and check something out and see if you like anything, we'd really appreciate it if you pick it up. I'm here in the Belfry, trying to do the best I can with what I got. And and we're here. Hit us up on the Instagram. Hit us up on the Reddit. Hit us up on the Discord. The Discord's a new thing. That's probably the best place. The Discord is probably the Discord and the Reddit are probably the two best places to keep in contact with me. Every once in a while I play around with the rambling Instagram, but those are probably the two best places to find me, because when I have a conversation, I'm literally up all day and all night. So I'm around. You guys want to talk, I'm here.
I think that's a wrap. We're praying to Stan Lee up in the heavens for some good Daredevil in tomorrow's episode. Yeah. But yeah, thank you all for being here. Thanks for watching. HeyArcher, wow. Whew. HeyArcher, the podcast. HeyArcher, the podcast, episode 138 here on Nerd Affiliated. More podcasts, more reviews. HeyArcher Live every Thursday, 8:15ish p.m. here on the channel. Good times for all, and more good times to come. That being said, we'll talk to all you nerds in the next video. Peace.
Torpay Noctem. See ya.